Hello, I'm Will and this is Mike with the Tabletop Donkeys.
Hello.
And in this video, to celebrate reaching 1,000 subscribers, we're going to be having a special look at the entire Silver Templars Space Marines collection that we've built up on this channel. This collection is in fact as old as the channel, having been in our very first video, looking at Warhammer 40,000 Conquest magazine, and they kind of become a bit of a signature of our channel. There are a few channels that have done painting guides and things for Silver Templars, and a couple that did make some slightly larger armies, but as far as I know, we're the only people crazy enough to play nearly 200 games with one army, with an army of Silver Templars.
I mean, they've fought through both magazines and plus some other stuff, so I've kind of ended up with a Space Marine army where I wasn't terribly interested in playing one before, but it has been fun to collect and paint them up, so I thought it'd be nice to show you the outcome of the journey so far.
So you can see on your screen the entirety of the Silver Templars that are currently painted, including a few models that have never actually been featured on the channel before. Obviously, if you've been following the channel since the early days, you will have some idea of the history of this collection, but for those who are a bit newer, well, I guess first of all, who are the Silver Templars, and why did you decide to paint your models as this particular chapter?
Yeah, so they're an Ultramarine successor chapter, and they were created for the Conquest magazine. With that magazine, all the painting guides did tell you to paint them as Ultramarines, so it was a bit of a choice when we started doing that series between following the painting guides as they came along, and so you could see the models painted up over time. But I wanted to do the Silver Templars because they're a bit different, and having fully painted models looks a bit nicer on camera. And yeah, I do like the Silver Templars colour scheme. It's really quick to paint. I think it actually looks really good. The nice variant between the bright yellow and the shiny silver. And
they were noted as taking part in the campaign for Corps 2, so even though the missions were always from the point of view of the Ultramarines, the Silver Templars often appeared on sort of tactical maps as well, so
yeah,
they were there.
We did get a little bit of their lore in Conquest, and I think we did get some more in Imperium, and they did have their source book that came with Conquest, which is more than a lot of the other chapters get, especially some of the Ultramarine successors, because there's so many. There's a bit of backstory about them liberating their homeworld Navaris from Slaanesh worshippers, and they're sort of focused on sort of martial honour and really practicing with one type of weapon and becoming an expert in its use.
And that was only available to subscribers, or they did make it available on their website later, but obviously it was only a limited print run, so there's only a certain amount of those in existence. Yes, we can actually look at the collection as it was that came from Conquest, and I think this is the largest section of the army individually. We did an entire video where we looked at the whole collection at the end of Conquest and gave our conclusions, so we won't go over any of that right now, but it's a reasonably decent sized beginner Space Marine army, I'd say.
Yeah, and I think it was pretty much one of everything that the Primaris range had at the time, because I believe in there also the Silver Templars are meant to be an all Primaris chapter as well. It does have a bunch of the older stuff, which we kind of worked in as like replacements or other chapters that were destroyed and folded into the Silver Templars. So you have things like the Land Speeder and the old bikes, which I think are out of print now, and the old Scouts as well, obviously.
And what we did comment on at the time was that you got a decent number of infantry, but not that much heavy equipment. So apart from the repulsor.
Yeah, but at the time that was it for the Primaris range. I think even the repulsor Executioner wasn't out at this point.
We also got an awful lot of characters as well. You can see them all lined up at the front.
Yeah, it was the two lieutenants from Dark Imperium, plus Cautius, who was the unique one for the magazine. The lieutenant with Power Sword, who came with the Silver Templars box. And there was both variants of the captain. Yeah, and even like the chaplain, the apothecary, the librarian were all... There's just one of each of all the Primaris that was available at the time. There's even two of the Horus Heresy era captains who tagged along, because they must have been running out of ideas.
Yes, and you mentioned that some of these were from the Imperium box set, because most of the models were either older or were the easy-to-build or single-pose things from the starter sets or the easy-to-build range as it was at the time, which made sense for beginners. Some of the older stuff was full kit, but they were less full-featured kits just because they were a bit older.
Yeah, the Repulsor is probably the only full multi-part kit, and the Intercessor squad that came with the Silver Templars added box.
Yeah, so actually let's talk about that for a second, because the premium subscription for Conquest wasn't actually that good, I seem to remember. There wasn't really that much extra you got for being a premium subscriber. Perhaps if you were a premium subscriber, let us know what you thought in the comments. But they did do a Silver Templars special edition, because remember they told us to paint everything as Ultramarines in the magazine, but then these 6 models were detailed as being Silver Templars and even came with a painting guide.
Yeah, and we did a video on that, which will probably be linked. I came up with the colour scheme before the painting guide, and I think it's actually pretty similar. But yeah, it came with the full Intercessor kit and a transfer sheet. I haven't used them, I probably don't actually have enough to cover the whole army anymore, but I did get a couple of extra issues of Conquest. I did get some more Sniper Scouts, but they went to a Horus Heresy army you might see in the future. I got another copy of the issue that came with the 2 lieutenants, because it came with 5 intercessors, which I turned into veteran intercessors, which fortunately aren't a thing anymore, but you'll see them in a bit. And I did get another repulsor as well, just because I think that was a really good value for money, even across 4 issues where 1 issue was just the base.
But yes, you've sort of already alluded to it, but then after Conquest, and this was also before Imperium magazine was a thing as well, you did actually add some more stuff to it, which we featured in our narrative campaign, The Mystery of Artana 3.
Yeah, unfortunately that sort of died. We don't really have time for it at the moment when Imperium came out, but effectively I just added the stuff from Indomitus.
Yes, you can see all that here, and also the Veteran Intercessor Squad that we mentioned before, which you did paint up for the narrative campaign.
Yeah, so they have white helmets, but I think added a lot of melee punch to the Primaris, certainly with all the Assault Intercessors, and the Eradicators were sorely needed as a dedicated anti-tank unit. And you might also see the Chaplain, the Judicator, and the Blade Guard Ancient as well, which I haven't used in any videos, but they're here and painted. And there's an extra Assault Intercessor as well, because I think I've only actually painted the 10 from Indomitus, and I painted one Sergeant for Imperium, so I have about another 15 or so Assault Intercessors to paint from Imperium, and I think I got one of the starter boxes as well.
And I think it was around that time that they did actually do a feature on the Silver Templars in White Dwarf magazine. I think it was just before the 9th edition Space Marine Codex, because I think the rule that the Silver Templars had combined the two chapter tactics that were then featured in Codex Space Marines.
Yeah, it was the Duelists and Master Artisans in the Make Your Own chapter.
But then they did actually get a couple of unique stratagems and relic, I think, to themselves, the Silver Templars, which were White Dwarf exclusive. So that was actually quite interesting, and we did feature those rules in a battle report.
Yeah, we certainly tried
time.
some of them out. I can't remember if I got to use the stratagems or not. I can't really use them in 10th, unfortunately.
I think it also featured several gallery pages of people's painted Silver Templars, which was nice just for exposure for the chapter, I think, as much as anything, because as we've said, the non-poster boy chapters quite often don't get much coverage, so that was actually nice. And quite a number of these models actually then turned up in Imperium magazine, which was the successor magazine to Conquest, following a similar format, but the Space Marines were not the only faction that Imperium got. We also got small collections of other things, so there's not quite as many Space Marines with Imperium. Also bear in mind that actually the 10 Assault Intercessors and the 3 Outrider Bikes and also the Blade Guard Lieutenant that we've just looked at in Indomitus then carried on with Imperium.
Also the trio of aggressors, I think, are veterans from Conquest. They will have fought their way through 2 entire magazines, because I didn't paint the extra ones that came with Imperium yet.
And I think that was actually a major reason why you decided to just stick with the Silver Templars for Imperium magazine rather than paint a different chapter or anything, just because you already had the models painted.
Yeah, and it sort of made sense to continue from Conquest. Also, I think partially because you had the Necrons, it was easy logistics, but it was nice to continue them. But Imperium didn't really focus on the Silver Templars at all. I think they did get some lore, we got some character profiles and stuff, but it was definitely more Ultramarines based. We've included Gilliman and Calgar and his 2 friends, just to show that they're part of the collection, even though they're technically not Silver Templars.
And also, I suppose, technically the 3 easy-to-build Assault Intercessors we got at the start with all the Ultramarines iconography, which you just painted to Silver Templars, and they're either Ultramarines who are on secondment and painted themselves so as not to stand out.
Or it's like spare bits of armour. Battlefield repairs.
Yeah, the Ultramarines donated some spares or something.
It was even the same with old Lieutenant Calcius way back in Conquest. He has Ultramarines iconography, and there's a unique model, so I didn't want to file off the Ultramarine symbols. And you can see the Dreadnought at the back, which hasn't appeared in Imperium yet by the time this video goes out.
That's also from the 10 bonus issues at the end that they weren't initially planning to do, so there wasn't even going to be another vehicle. And also a continuation of the theme of not that many bits of heavy equipment in the collection, because it comes from all these sets where you don't tend to get tanks and things in. Dreadnoughts are quite well appointed for, but not actual tanks. And of course it does include as well the exclusive miniature to Imperium magazine, the Captain, who's not chapter specific. He doesn't have an Ultramarine symbol on him. You can
I think that's a much nicer way of doing those unique models.
Yes, so thinking about the 2 collections as a whole, if all you had got for your Space Marines was the 2 collections from the magazine, I think Imperium does add some things that were perhaps missing from the Conquest collection, not only in gaming terms, but also just in expanding the army to include some different elements.
A couple of decent long-range options, like the suppressors have been really good in Imperium. And we even got the servo turret, which honestly isn't that great, but yeah. And I think if you look at the Space Marine collection from Imperium on its own, I think it's actually fairly lacking, seeing as it's mostly Vanguard. I don't mind the Vanguard stuff. I don't think it particularly fits the Silver Templars lore very well, because I think they're too much about sneaking.
And also being bright silver and trying to sneak around is a slight hindrance.
It's a little bit lacking, but you did get some of the other Imperial factions, which was nice, I suppose.
And then moving on to, the final section of the collection that is painted, which mostly consists of stuff from the new 10th edition Leviathan box.
Yeah, it's essentially the new Combat Patrol Space Marines plus the Stern Guard and the Blisters Dreadnought. Again, more stuff. I really like the look of the new Stern Guard and Terminators. More things that I think fit the Silver Templars lore and sort of theme. There's also a Tech Marine, who incidentally is the only model in this collection that was like a full price box. It didn't come from the magazines or a bundle box or starter box.
So why did you actually add him out of interest?
Because I needed someone to fix the dreadnoughts. Because we started a Crusade campaign in our local gaming store, and I included a Redemptor dreadnought and a Ballistus dreadnought because they're both pretty decent models in 10th edition. And I wanted someone to walk around and fix them, essentially. Yeah. And I don't have a Tech Marine. That's the one specialist that was sort of missing, because I got chaplains and apothecaries and ancients and librarians, so I needed a Tech Marine.
Yeah, and there are a few models still from that box that you haven't painted up yet, so we haven't included them in this, but there's another 5 Infernus Marines, the Apothecary Biologus, and the Lieutenant with the combi weapon.
Yeah, the lone operative one.
Yeah, so that is the collection as it is, painted so far. So, finally looking towards the future, firstly, is there anything you're currently working on we might see in the future? And then looking further ahead, is there anything else that you'd like to add to the collection, either, I guess, from a gaming point of view, or just because there's a good model you'd like to include?
Not immediately. I'll probably finish painting off the Leviathan stuff eventually. It depends how much more I'll be adding to that Crusade army. I've got a mixture of stuff from all of the collections, all the different sources of models. I'm kind of okay with it. I think it's about 1,600 points. I think one thing I did think about adding was a Gladiator, probably the Lancer, because I would like to have an extra tank or two, because I do like trying to stick to the Silver Templars lore, so I sort of think I'd go towards a more veteran heavy force, but I would like to add at least one extra tank. And I'm not too sure about adding any transports either. Probably would be worth getting an Impulsor or a Rhino or something for units to drive around in so they're not footslogging everywhere. Maybe some Assault Terminators when a new kit for them comes out, or if they redo the Vanguard veteran kit, because I think the Assault Intercessors with jump packs I'm not too keen on. I like aircraft, but I don't think any of the Space Marine aircraft look particularly good, but I might add one of those. If they do a plastic version of, say, the Zephon Interceptor and allow you to use it in 40k, I would add one of those.
And actually, at the time of recording, has just been teased that there is likely to be another Partworks magazine, which we assume is going to be Space Marines vs. Tyranids, because following the theme they've been doing, it will be what's in the starter box set for the current edition, which is Space Marines and Tyranids. And at least the current plan is that we will cover that magazine when it comes out. We're not expecting that till towards the end of 2024, but we might do that slightly differently in that someone else might be playing the Space Marines.
Yeah, I would probably still get the collection and then paint them as Silver Templars, because that is my main Space Marine army, but I am more interested in playing the Tyranids, and I had an interest in starting a Tyranids army, so...
Yeah, so I might be playing the Space Marines and probably not the Silver Templars, although which chapter it will be, I haven't actually decided yet, so assuming all that goes ahead, you can wait and see what ends up being with that. So yeah, I guess, any closing thoughts really? I mean, given that as someone who never really had an interest with the Space Marines, you've now ended up with the Space Marines as probably your largest painted army of anything.
Yeah, I think it was more when I was younger, and I was always that sort of, I don't like what's popular, so I don't like the Space Marines, but yeah, they were fun to paint. I do really like the colour scheme. It's really quick to paint and it looks really good. The lighting we use in videos maybe flatters it a bit.
Yeah, they're highly reflective under good lighting, so it looks pretty good on camera.
I mean, the basing isn't terribly exciting with just astrogranite, but it's nice to focus more on the models. I certainly got a lot quicker at painting by painting all of the Silver Templars.
Yes, and you imagine you've got the silver, black and yellow pretty much down now.
And it's nice to do something a bit different to the Ultramarines, because the Ultramarines, being the poster boys, get tons of coverage, and a lot of the successor chapters that aren't the Black Templars, or maybe the Crimson Fists, get barely any love at all. All the Blood Ravens, I think, are like the only popular ones. And getting them painted to show them on video, yeah, it was good motivation to get it done. Even just following along the magazine, I've got to get this painted for the next video we're going to do, although we did fall behind a bit, but you can't really help that. People get ill or too busy to film, so...
Yes. But yeah, so I think that's pretty much all we've got to say for now. So thank you to everyone who has subscribed and got us to 1,000 subscribers. And as we said, there'll be more things coming in the future. Obviously, a continuation of the Stormbringer series, the conclusion of Imperium. Might also try and do a video on Crusade in 10th edition using the Silver Templar army.
Yeah, I might see if we can continue Mystery of Artana 3. It sort of lost a bit of steam, and I think we were both getting more busy around that time as well.
Perhaps we might see the Space Marine Combat Patrol again in a future video as well. And also several sort of one-off videos we might do. Also a couple of things we've been saving up to do in the future that we'll hopefully get done before the new magazine starts, which we would expect will be towards the back end of 2024.
Yeah, hopefully see if we can get a Horus Heresy video out. We do have something big planned for the summer, but we'll see how that goes.
So yeah, thank you again to our subscribers and to everybody who watches our videos. Let us know in the comments below what you think of the collection. Have you enjoyed following along with it, or if you've been following since the beginning? Let us know if there's any more content you'd like to see focused on the Silver Templars in the future. But in the meantime, we've been the Tabletop Donkeys, and we will see you in the next video.
Bye for now.